Welcome to Conversations with Big Rich. This is an interview-style podcast. Those interviews are all involved in the off-road industry. Being involved, like all of my guests are, is a lifestyle, not just a job. I talk to competitive teams, racers, rock crawlers, business owners, employees, media, and private park owners, men and women who have found their way into this exciting and addictive lifestyle. We discuss their personal history, struggles, successes, and reboots. We dive into what drives them to stay active and off-road. We all hope to shed some light on how to find a path into this world we live and love and call off-road.
Whether you're crawling the Red Rocks of Moab or hauling your toys to the trail, Maxxis has the tires you can trust for performance and durability. 4 wheels or 2. Maxxis tires are the choice of champions because they know that whether for work or play, for fun or competition, Maxxis tires deliver. Choose Maxxis. Tread victoriously.
Have you seen 4Low magazine yet? 4Low magazine is a high-quality, well-written, four-wheel drive-focused magazine for the enthusiast market. If you still love the idea of a printed magazine, something to save and read at any time, 4Low is the magazine for you. 4Low cannot be found in stores, but you can have it delivered to your home or place of business. Visit 4lowmagazine.com to order your subscription today. On today's episode of Conversations with Big Rich, we have Stephen Bisig. Stephen is, well, I know Stephen from back in the early ARB days. I'm not sure exactly when he started. I knew a couple of guys, I think, prior to him, but, you know, Stephen has always been a great guy. He's jumped around with a couple of companies, but it looks like he's solid now. We're happy to hear that. Stephen, thank you for coming on board and sharing your life, and it's good to talk to you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on the podcast. I know we've been trying to set this up for a while.
Yeah, we have.
Finally worked out.
It's good. I'm glad we were able to do this. So let's jump right in and find out where you were born and raised.
Yep. So I'm one of the few people in Western Washington that actually was born here in the Seattle-Tacoma area. I was born and raised in Puyallup, Washington, and the furthest I moved was North Seattle for about 9 years, and now I'm back down closer to where I was born. I think 7-8 miles from the actual hospital. I'm actually currently living in Federal Way.
Okay. And what was the area like back then? I mean, my dad was raised in Seattle, wasn't born there, was he? Yeah, I think he was born and raised in Seattle as well, up on Lake Washington. I don't want to screw up what area it was at, but they moved to California when he was a kid. But how rural was it back then?
So where I actually grew up was and Puyallup was kind of known as a hop community, hop farms.
Okay.
And basically when the wagon trains came out west, a lot of them either went down towards Oregon or they went over our mountain passes here and kind of settled in the Puyallup Valley or the Puget Sound area. So technically I didn't grow up in the Seattle area. I can tell you where your dad was born, though, that you probably wouldn't want to look up the property value if you lived up there. Everything, just like California, everything is just skyrocketed.
Their house there had that they lived in had a view of of Lake Washington. They're up on some hill. I want to say it was like the University District or something like that. I don't know, but it was. Yeah, we've driven by it a number of times, and I don't think they owned it though. They were renting back then.
Gotcha. So yeah, so I grew up in kind of the Puyallup area. My dad, my grandfather, my mom all went to the same high school, in Puyallup High School. But my dad, and then I ended up growing up there as well. It was actually a small town right next to Puyallup, which is called Edgewood. And they actually didn't even become a true town or city, excuse me, a true city until, it was right around the 2000s.
Oh, wow. So it was unincorporated?
Yeah, it was unincorporated. Sorry for my voice here. I was
No
up in
worries.
the mountains this weekend, and unfortunately, all the fire smoke is starting to get to me.
That's all right.
So anyway, my little town there, Edgewood, which funny because same junior high, same thing. My grandfather, myself, and my dad all went to the same junior high. My dad and I actually shared a couple teachers.
Wow.
But that's a whole other story. But that town, Edgewood, at that time we didn't have a large piece of property, but across the street was all farmland. It was all like a horse pasture or cow pasture. So that mostly Edgewood was still kind of that old school little farming community up on the hillside. So it's essentially like a outskirts of the larger Tacoma and so on. Currently now, it's just like many places, a lot of that land's being developed and apartment buildings are going up. My father has been a full-time firefighter in that town his entire career, so he's on his second fire department remodel.
Wow.
So it just kind of shows you, and that's just they need the support for all the apartments and retirement homes and all that are going up. So it's changed big time. Every time I drive through that town, it's like, holy smokes, there's more.
So when you were growing up, how did you, what was your entertainment that young age?
Well, my dad was a full-time firefighter at that time. He was working 410s, so I was home by myself during the summertime, and I had a BB gun that I shot cans in the backyard. I had my BMX bike that I rode all around town with friends, and that was my entertainment. I was always outside playing.
Excellent. So what was your curfew like?
I really honestly never did have one.
Okay.
I would always come home when I was supposed to. Nothing super late unless it snowed, and probably wouldn't come home till after midnight. But no, just my friends and I were into BMX bikes. We just rode around town, had jumps here and there, and yeah, that was my childhood. It was my early childhood at least. Yep.
Okay. And how was school for you in those early years?
I've never actually been the greatest student, unless it was something I was really interested in. And even then, I had some issues, just if I didn't get along with teachers and such. For example, Washington State history. I love Washington State history, but I did not get along with my teacher, and that reflected on my grades.
Right.
But then in high school, I had awesome, and again, it comes back to something I was interested in. I had an amazing automotive teacher, awesome metal shop teacher, which was also my dad's metal shop teacher at high school, and electronics teacher. So of course, the stuff that I was interested in, the hands-on, the technical stuff, I got A's. So that was, but your English classes, your math classes, all that stuff, I wasn't good at all.
Did your wife grow up in that area as well?
Yeah, she did. So my wife Amelia actually grew up in Seattle, north of downtown Seattle.
Okay.
So yeah, she hasn't. This is the furthest she's moved south, which is about 30 miles from where she was born.
Okay.
So we're oddity here.
Cool. So high school, a lot of shop courses. Is that where you plan to go to after graduation, or did you have other plans?
So entering high school, I had no idea really what I wanted to do. I kind of liked the thought of architecture. Yeah, becoming an architect. Although the math problems there, that didn't help that out.
Right.
So basically, I entered high school not really knowing what I wanted to do. I signed up for a basic automotive program, and that's kind of where it took off. Kind of just fell in love with working on vehicles, and had an awesome teacher. Our automotive class at Gallup High School was actually an ASE certified class.
Okay.
So once you got into the advanced stuff, you actually could earn college credits, or I can't remember how exactly it worked, but they were ASE credits.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of where it all took off. And then of course he would bring in schools. He would bring in our local community colleges who taught automotive programs. He would bring in UTI, Universal Technical Institute, WyoTech. They all came in, did presentations with us. So yeah, that's kind of where it all took off.
And what was the first motorized vehicle that you got to drive? Whether it be motorcycle, ATV, car, truck, whatever.
So my early years before high school my dad and I raced downhill mountain bikes. So I never had dirt bikes. I always wanted one. I always went to the Supercrosses here in town, everything like that. But my sport was the downhill mountain bike racing. That was it. So that we traveled around the Northwest, California, Utah for nationals and such. So my first vehicle was until I actually got a job when I was late 16s, and it was my dad's bought new 1987 Cherokee with a manual. So that was my first vehicle. I bought it off him, and that was my commuter for our first couple years or so. And then I started getting into, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, where I wanted to work for as a technician. At the time, I was big into Formula One racing, which I still am. I love Formula One. So I was kind of a Mercedes fan at that time, and that's kind of my set goal, was to work for Mercedes as a technician. So my parents had a little 190E Mercedes. I think it was a 91. So I ended up getting that from them as well, or buying that from them as well. And then, yeah, that was just too fast.
That sounds like you may have gotten a few tickets in it.
Actually, believe it or not, and funny story, I've only gotten one speeding ticket, knock on wood, and that was driving ARB's FJ Cruiser.
Really?
Yep, that was a fun call to the president of ARB, just let him know, and he laughed at me. He's like, it took you this long to get a ticket, a speeding ticket? So, yeah.
I had my first speeding ticket. Let's see, I got my license in March. I was working for a repair facility, and I went to pick up a client to get him back to the shop to get his car, and he was like the city architect or engineer, where we had the shop, and I picked him up driving the shop van. I pulled out of his parking lot and went like 150 feet to where I stopped because the lights came on behind me, and I thought the guy was he wasn't there, and then all of a sudden he was there. So I pulled over thinking that he was, trying to get around me. And he pulls in behind me, and he's got his gun half drawn, and he's coming down the side of the van, because it's a cargo van. There's no side windows. And so I'm like, oh my God. And I put my hands out the window, and, I'm like, don't shoot. And he comes up, and he wrote me a ticket for doing 45 miles an hour in a 25. And the guy that I was riding with, or that I was driving back to the shop, he works for the city, and he is just reaming this cop's butt. And he's just all over this guy. And the guy goes, well, we'll see you in court, I guess, kid. And he wrote the ticket, and the guy showed up for juvenile traffic court with me and my dad, just to tell the judge that the cop was full of shit.
Nice.
Because I was like, I don't even know if I went a quarter of a mile, and it was like 150 to 200 yards is as far as I got.
Nice.
It's dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, some of them are out there.
Oh, yeah.
Just to get to their quotas.
Yep. So growing up, driving the XJ, and man, that puts, now I'm seeing how old you are, because those XJs aren't that old. No. Okay, so then is that you're into the automotive scene? High school, you're doing the shop classes and everything. Where did it go from there?
So where it went from there, I actually was signed up for UTI to go to the school down there to go through their first program, and then hoping to get in the Mercedes program. I think it was in Rancho Cucamonga.
Right.
I believe was where their program was. At one point, and I was trying to remember this prior to the call. But I think the local Mercedes dealership actually came in to our school to talk to us, kind of with some of the other dealerships in the area, like the Ford dealership. I think there's a Chev dealership. And I met I can't remember his position. He was a manager position, but he basically persuaded me that it'd be better for them just to put me in the Mercedes program directly versus going to UTI. So I had his information, all that. He told me to come by the dealership. I think it was the October after I graduated. And then unfortunately, that's when 9/11 happened. So when I went to the dealership, they had kind of slimmed out. He was no longer at that dealership. And that program that Mercedes had was put on hold. And if I remember right, too, I had friends that were going UTI that were a year ahead of me. And a lot of stuff got put on hold with them down there, too, just because everybody was kind of uncertain what was happening.
Yeah. So then what did you do instead of that UTI program or the Mercedes?
Yep. So I was working at the time, like during high school, I actually was hired on at Firestone as a lube tech. So I got to go through the lube and tire tech. So I got to go through the whole Firestone recall, which was fun. That was a lot of overtime for a kid that was going to school full time too. That was brief, and then I jumped next door to an auto parts store, which I kind of climbed the ranks up. So I didn't really know what I was going to do. So I managed the automotive retail store for a couple years, and then, of course, knew that wasn't going to be my full future. My dad's always been in the computers, and it's funny because he's always, like we were talking earlier with a Macs, he's always been in the Macs. He had his own web hosting company, so I decided to create my own website as a four-wheel drive website. And I really wish I still had the domain name still, because it was 4wdrive.com.
Oh, wow.
I think it is actually available, but they want like $3,000 or $4,000 for it. So my whole goal of that was to just kind of do trip reports. I was going to the local like poker runs and stuff and taking photos, and then also sell product. So yeah, I was kind of wish I would have stuck with it, because I was super early. That was in 2002 or 2003. I had a working e-commerce store using just like the old school built-in PayPal checkout buttons. So that's from there. I'll go ahead and continuing. But from there, I think I reached out to Chris Wood, who was a long-time ARB sales rep, and he's actually at AEV now, American Expedition Vehicles. But I can't remember. I reached out to them about setting up an account. I can't remember if this is 100% accurate, but I believe they reached out to me about a possible position at ARB in the tech department. So again, I'm not 100% sure on that. I can't remember if they reached out to me or if I saw a listing when I was looking up their information. But regardless, they brought me in. I had an interview. It was kind of for like an assistant manager position in the tech department. I didn't get it, but they told me to come back in a couple of months, and I did. And at that point, I got hired on by some random guy the listeners might know of. His name is Tech Tim Lund.
Yes. Who is even harder to get on the phone than you are.
Yeah, he's a busy guy now.
Yes, he is. So then at ARB, you started off in the tech department?
Yep.
Okay.
So that was May of 2003, and then I believe it was July, and you'll know this one. I think it was July. That following July is when I met you. Went to We Rock in Goldendale, Washington.
Right.
And
yep.
That's where I met you guys. That's where I met a lot of industry people I still consider friends. It's the first time I got drunk with the Campbells. Met them and got drunk at the Campbells at the grain silo in Goldendale. So yeah, that's kind of and met a lot of friends at that event. Former We Rock competitor Rob McKinney.
Yes. Which
I consider him a best friend of mine now.
Excellent.
So that was my first trip, or first time really meeting and hanging out with him. So yeah, I have to credit you with a lot to where I'm at now, just from the We Rock event.
Right. So was Scott Service working there at that time?
No,
Okay.
Scott came on. I think that was a late 2000s. I can't remember
Okay.
exactly.
All right. No worries. Um, so then Goldendale, your first rock crawl. Um,
Yep.
what did you think when you showed up there and saw what was happening?
Well, that was the first time I actually saw rock crawl, I think, in person. I believe I had video cassette tapes back then of different stuff. Um, there was a little bit, what was this, rockcrawler.com? There's a little bit of stuff back then. That was all of our, and especially in our high school class, all of our favorite website at the time. No, it was awesome. It was, it was, I mean, it inspired me to start photographing the rock crawl events.
Okay.
And, and just kind of went down a rabbit hole from there.
So let's talk about your days at ARB in the tech department, but you didn't stay in the tech department.
Nope. So I was in the tech department, I think, about 3 years.
Okay.
I left the tech department right when I think Tim Lund moved on. I think he left, if I remember right, he left to go start his own fabrication, or he was doing a lot of fabrication work on the side. So he was going to go pursue that. So at that time, they moved me up into the customer service, which basically I was still fielding technical calls, but just the easy stuff prior to they get into the tech department. Because of my product knowledge, I was eventually moved over to handle Latin America sales.
Oh, nice.
So it was all wet. It wasn't like I didn't travel or anything. It was all via email, but I handled all the Latin American countries except for Venezuela and Colombia. And then I also did a lot of the forecasting and ordering for Old Man Emu suspension. That was my other task.
So why not Venezuela and Colombia?
Because they were at the time they were really, really big accounts. So the president of the company, Jim Jackson, was handling them directly.
Okay.
And they were very, if I remember right, the dealers at that time were kind of a handful. So so everybody else, I mean, I dealt with more, and again, they were the bigger accounts, so they were the ones that needed the most attention.
Right.
So I handled like the smaller accounts where I was shipping product out, small batches of product and so on, not like big direct shipments or anything like that.
Okay, that makes sense. All right.
Yep.
And what was the hardest thing from going into ARB for you to learn or, assimilate into or anything like that? What was the hardest part of that?
Well, going into, I mean, I had all your basic automotive knowledge, but there was still a lot of off-road specific technical stuff that I really needed to learn. Probably the hardest stuff was just drivetrain stuff, like gear ratios and applications and so on. But
that math.
luckily, yeah. But luckily having Tim there, Tim's super knowledgeable about that. I'm really lucky to have the ARB engineers came over from Australia quite often, which I now call friends of my own. So luckily I had a lot of good teachers at the fairly young age to pick up on all that, to learn it all.
Excellent.
And be a part of different suspension developments, the air locker developments on a few applications. So I'm just grateful I had people that I was working alongside that I learned from.
So then kind of run through all of your things that you did at ARB, because you were there for quite a while.
Yeah, I was there for a little over 17 years.
Wow.
So tech department, customer service, the helping out Latin American sales. They would throw me out in the warehouse every once in a while just to help check in big shipments because they trusted my recording of serial number ability. I would help the accounting department here and there, just if they were overloaded. And then eventually, from going to the We Rock events and stuff and I really got into still photography and a little bit of video at the time, but mostly still photography. At that time, it was right around 2007, 2008. They wanted to expand the marketing department at ARB, And because of my photography skills, they felt like I would be perfect for that role. At that time, the manager, Lisa Wood, she requested it, and I was brought in to be kind of her assistant to help out with all the sponsorship requests, kind of anything photo related. Geez, what else? Event planning and so on. And then eventually when she moved on to go work for General Tire and run their marketing department and so on, then if I remember right, let's see here, we brought in another person. So,
okay,
man, you're making me dig deep down my memory today. But so yeah, right up until 2017, I was in the marketing department. When I left there, my main role was anything photography related, handling outside photography, like studio stuff. We would outsource a lot of the studio photography locally here, and Ultra 4 stuff. So King of the Hammers was kind of my baby, just because I attended King of the Hammers prior to actually being paid to be there, and I'm really proud of what we built up there.
Right.
The technical support system, which rolled into product development of some very high zoot air lockers, and which is rolled over to everyday application air lockers. So yeah, in social media was my other main task. So social media photography and really anything race related.
And what kind of stories can you tell, or do you remember of those early days at events? You know, any besides like meeting Rob McKinney and becoming, best friends with him, and then drinking with the Campbells, which never happened to anybody in Goldendale or anywhere else. So what are some of the other things? People that you met that made a big impact?
Yeah, and I hate to just name drop people because they're so well known, but I really enjoyed on the raw crawl side, really enjoyed going out to Goldendale, not Goldendale, but Donner. Donner was one of my favorite places to go.
Ours too.
Yeah, it's just beautiful up there. I took my wife to her first off-road event, really, was there, and she got to meet Jason Shearer, Jason Berger, all those guys, and which I think I might have met them actually in my first time at Donner as well. Actually, I did. Yeah.
Okay.
We stayed at Jason Berger's house, Rob McKinney and I did, and I met Jason Shearer and Berger, and I think Nick Campbell was spotting at the time.
Right.
For Jason. So, I mean, I just met a lot of awesome people in the industry that I'll still talk to here and there and text them, even if I'm not able to go to events. So that was on the rock crawl side. There was a pretty crazy event when we went down for Supercrawl the one year in Vegas. That was an interesting weekend. Right.
Why was that interesting? Without getting anybody in trouble.
No, it's a cool story. So my friend Rob, who's competing, he actually snapped his camshaft in a Subaru motor moon buggy.
Wow.
And Chip Foose's guy was over there. He saw that, and he told Rob to, hey, pull that thing out. We could probably weld it up. And I just remember us running over to, Chip Foose's, I think what was the show he did? It was the hot rod building show he had.
Right.
But that Supercrawl was right before SEMA, and his show, they were doing a live show there. So he had all of his fabrication equipment. And Chip Foose's main welder guy, he chucked up in a lathe and was able to weld that camshaft back together. And Rob installed it, ran it, and from my understanding, it's hanging on his wall in his garage right now.
It should.
Yeah.
I can't believe welded up a camshaft.
And then I remember, Chip Foose told us, hey, come grab us next time you're out there running. We want to see you run. And he came out and watched Rob do his run that night.
That's awesome.
So that was really awesome, cool story there. On the rock racing side, I mean, King of the Hammers since I've been going King of the Hammers since the first non-OG year. So 2008?
Right.
So just seeing that grow to what it is now is just insane. I mean, I tell that story all the time. Like, yeah, I remember when it was just maybe 50, 60 RVs out here, if that.
Yeah, and that included all the spectators.
Yeah. Yep. And how a lot of media just kind of wrote it off. There weren't that media that I think it was myself and maybe a handful of other guys that were always at the rock crawls, and that was it.
Yeah, so, I was doing tech.
Yeah. Yeah, and I still have photos from that. I got friends that tell me, man, you need to put all those like historical King of the Hammers photos up somewhere so everybody can see them.
That's
see
true.
How the cars have all changed, but
the technology has been incredible.
Oh yeah, it's insane. Yep, but can't think of anything else that's. I mean, a lot of it, not fortunately, but a lot of it had to do with drinking. All the events, but
well, I think that goes hand in hand with off-roaders.
Yeah, but those are the kind of the stories that I've repeated. I mean, I repeated that King of the Hammers one because a good friend of mine I reconnected with up in a Jeep event this past weekend. He's never been to King of the Hammers, and I told him that story. I'm like, man, you just tell him, like, if you drive out that Thursday, Friday night, if you have to drive out to the street, it's just nonstop people camping.
Right.
He has to experience it. You have to go down and experience it.
If you're an off-road enthusiast, everybody should get out there once, at least, just to see what it's like. I myself have been enough times that I don't need to go that one more time.
Yeah. It can become a very long week. I just haven't been down. I haven't been down in forever that I wasn't being paid to work down there. So I'm just looking forward to get down and not have to do anything, not be on anybody's schedule.
Well, that's when you get some teams to contract with and do your photography that way.
Yeah, but I kind of just want to go down there as a fan.
Okay.
Honestly, and that and my wife wants to go too. She's watched it on TV all these years and heard stories, and she wants to go experience it.
Right. You don't want to be working if your wife is down there.
No. Nope.
So let's talk some more about ARB. At the end there, you were doing their social media marketing, I believe.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was I'm not a person that likes to take credit for anything, but I launched ARB's current Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, but the Instagram was what I was pretty proud of, just how fast I got that thing to grow. But luckily with ARB, they have awesome photographers in Australia, and in the overland market, a lot of people love those Australian vehicles, so they love seeing photos of it. So that it was almost like cheating to build that Instagram page, just based off the Australian content I had access to.
Right. That's what amazed me when I went to Australia was their utes, as they call them. And I mean, everything there, it seemed like, had a rooftop tent or at least an awning.
Yep.
I mean, maybe not the cars, but anything that was truck or van related, that way was just incredible.
Yeah, and you really need a vehicle like that over there if you want to leave the city. I mean, if I remember right too, I've been told that I think there are national parks over there. A lot of them it's required to have a 4-wheel drive, like a high clearance 4-wheel drive. So it's almost like unless you want to stay in a city all the time or the suburbs, you really need something somewhat built.
Yes. Yeah, we did national parks while we were there. We were there for a rock crawl for a We Rock event, Australia event. And then we went that was in Sydney. And then we went up the bush, not the outback, it goes the coastal area, the mountains, and then the bush, and then you get into the desert area, the true outback. But we stayed in that bush area and hit a bunch of the we stayed every night at national parks, and they're a lot different than U.S. national parks. They remind me more of like our state parks, where there's like more activities instead of, our national parks are like, look at the geological wonders. Our state parks are more like, hey, come out and enjoy this lake or this river or something like that. And that's what I realized their national parks for, at least in the areas that we went.
Yeah, it's true. I've never actually thought about that comparison between the national park and a state park, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's all about activities in a state park, really.
The only thing that got me about Australia was the dang kangaroos. Well, there was a lot of things that got me. I thought they were hilarious. The kangaroos, the first couple of days that we were there, I never saw a live one. Saw lots of dead ones. And I told Shelly, I said, I think they just pick up dead kangaroos and just throw them on the side of the road so tourists can see a kangaroo. And then we stopped at this national park, and we rented a Land Rover 110 that had a rooftop tent and an awning, and it was all set up and everything for overlanding. And I was getting set up, and I turn around, and there's this big gray kangaroo, 3 of them. And they were totally mean mugging me and all like flexed out. Like I thought they were going to, that they wanted my wallet. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, all right, I'm almost looking eye to eye with this guy. And he's just ripped, right? And I'm thinking, I'm not sure how to deal with this. I mean, if we were in the United States and I was in the wrong neighborhood and, I would know how to deal with it. But, I'm out in the woods. And this old guy that was camped a couple of spots away goes, oh, just don't worry about them, mate. And he comes down there and he starts, yelling at them and shooing them off. And they took off. And I looked at him and I said, man, they look meaner than hell. And he goes, oh, that's just the looks. They're not, though. So it was like, okay.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures of them. They're bodybuilders over there.
Yeah, they are. I don't know what it is. I guess it's, just the way they're built, but pretty crazy. And then the other thing they had over there were the Australian bush turkeys, which the first sign we saw said, where we stopped at a roadside area where there was an informational sign for the national park, and it said, be on the lookout for the rare bush turkey, Australian bush turkey. And I'm thinking, okay, and it's all wooded. Well, then we get to another camp and there's nothing rare about them. They were everywhere. But they were trying to be really sly. They love plastic bags, like what you'd get at the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had one of those hanging with anything in it, they'd try to sneak up and then grab that trash bag and haul ass. Because they knew there was either food of some type in them, and then like one guy that was camped next to us came back after being gone all day, and they'd gotten into his stuff, his plastic bag, and it was full of dirty clothes, and his clothes were spread out all over the campground.
Oh, man.
Yeah, he wasn't too thrilled with that. So then, after ARB, where did you go?
Yep. So after ARB, I went to a local shop here in Washington that really specialized in the overland market.
Okay.
So that was about a little over a year or so working there as the marketing manager. So handling pretty much anything marketing related, from event planning, e-commerce. I cleaned up the e-commerce store, improved it. Yeah, I mean, anything really e-commerce and marketing, I did it there.
Okay.
Lot different going from a big corporation at ARB down to a small regional company.
Right, with only a handful full of employees.
Yep. Yeah, there's 24 total employees, I believe.
Okay.
And then most recently, it's a lot bigger company, but not ARB big. Now I handle digital marketing, so mainly Google Ads for a company called Aftermarket Performance Group. So I've been there since June, I believe about June. Absolutely love it. It's an enthusiast-run company that pretty much everybody in this company that I've dealt with are car people, whether it's on the truck side, Jeep side, or car, go fast Subaru stuff. But the group is it's a group that owns several e-commerce based companies, distribution centers, so that this supply to the mom and pop shops,
Okay.
as well as manufacturers of actual product as well. So the listeners are going to be more familiar with one of the companies, which is Northridge. That's one of the brands under the Aftermarket Performance Group.
Okay. What are the other brands?
So they're on the truck side. You have Stage 3 Motorsports, which is a lot of like half-ton Ford, so F-150, Ram 1500, some Mustang stuff.
And that's called State Street?
Stage.
Stage, okay.
Yep, Stage 3 Motorsports.
Stage 3.
Yep.
And that's not what I heard.
Yep, so that's all kind of the Raptor stuff, the smaller Ford vehicles. You have Alligator Performance, which is I believe they purchased that right before I started. That's all like not heavy diesel. I keep saying heavy diesel, but like F-250, 3/4 ton and bigger, essentially. That's kind of it on the truck side. And then on the car side, company Rally Sport Direct, which is all what it sounds like, high performance parts for Subarus. And then there's a few other companies like Subi Speed, FT Speed. So it's all catering to import street market, really.
Nice.
And then some of these companies also manufacture their own products. So that's why the group purchased them, because they wanted manufacturing abilities as well. And then there's distribution centers. So Premier Performance is a big one for a lot of the mom and pop off-road shops. A lot of people purchase through them. That's where you can get a lot of if you specialize in four-wheel drive stuff, then you should have heard of them by now.
Right.
So my role is really Google Ads for all these channels. So I'm handling the Jeep side stuff. That's been super easy because I'm a Jeep guy. I can write copy. I know the photos. I know the vehicles. The import car side's been kind of a learning curve.
Right.
Just because I haven't really, besides having friends back in high school, having little Honda Civics and such, was never really exposed to imports, besides Mercedes.
Okay.
So that's where I'm at right now. Again, awesome company. They really pride themselves on a company full of car enthusiasts, automotive enthusiasts who are running the company.
Sweet.
So yeah, super happy with this company being here.
That sounds like a good fit for you.
Oh yeah. And then also too, just staring at a computer screen all day, it has been a little bit of transition. However, it's really pushing me to want to be outside all in the weekends. So, which I haven't felt that in a long time.
Right. I noticed because we talk a lot, not necessarily by phone. We do a lot of texting and messaging, but you've been doing a lot of camping and going out on the adventure trails and stuff up there in Washington. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm just I have a vehicle that's built for it. So I'm just trying to explore our state as much as possible, really. And it's been awesome.
Let's talk about that vehicle.
Yep. So like I said, I'm a Jeep guy. So I've actually got 4 Jeeps in the stable.
Oh, wow.
So wasn't my first one, but my first real Jeep was, I have a 93 YJ I've had since I was 20. I've completely built it up myself. It's pretty much, it's got air lockers front and rear. I mean, it's your basic low Jeep YJ on 35. So around here, a lot of our trails are tight and you do a lot of tree dodging. So most smaller Jeeps like a YJ or a TJ and stuff, 35-inch tires is about perfect. So it's kind of built for, again, tree dodging around here. And some of our trails are actually old Pioneer wagon trails. I mean, so that tells you how narrow some of these trails are.
Right.
So that's my main Jeep. Unfortunately, it's kind of been neglected. It lives in a garage, but it's been neglected because last year I purchased a Gladiator and put a lot of time and money into that. And it's built for mainly camping and adventure travel. It's special ordered. I fell in love with the Gladiator when I worked at ARB, and then the diesel came out. So I special ordered one with a diesel, firecracker red, and very minimal options because I knew what I was going to do to it. I knew I was going to put a better suspension on there. I knew I was going to put air lockers in the front and rear bumpers and so on. So I didn't want to spend them extra money on a package that I was just going to take off anyway.
Right. That makes
sense. That's my main adventure vehicle, camping vehicle. It's got a Alucab canopy camper, which is a South African company that builds it's what it sounds like. It's a canopy, and it has a built-in tent system that you access via inside the camper or the canopy.
Right. I've seen those. One of the girls on the Rebel had one. Of course, they couldn't use it because they tent camp and the vehicles go into an impound. So if girls that come with rooftop tents or anything like that, they don't end up using them. But that, and then we were camped next to somebody in Minnesota, I believe it was, that had one, and we checked it out, and they're really nice.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I mean, it's pretty much completely sealed. This past weekend, I was in some nasty silt, like really deep silt. And I see a little trace of dust in there, so I got to chase that down. But otherwise, I mean, it's almost 100% sealed, no dust. Has a heater system in there, so I'm really looking forward to snow camping this winter, getting out there.
That's what these people said. They were from the northern part of the country, and they said that it was a 4-season camper.
Yep. Yeah, I just need to do a little insulation on there, and then we'll be good to go. The other vehicles, I got to mention it because my wife will probably listen to the podcast, but she's got her baby, which is a 2018 Grand Cherokee with a 5.7 in it. Oh, nice. And for her birthday, we installed a Corsa exhaust on there, and the thing just sounds amazing now. So again, it's her baby. She doesn't want to think about ever getting rid of it. Yeah, and then I have my grocery getter. I got a 2-wheel drive 2001 silver Jeep Cherokee.
There you go.
That my wife hates. She doesn't know why I still have it. And I have to tell her all the time, this is my going to parking garages and running the grocery store Jeep.
You don't worry about door dings or anything.
Nope.
That makes sense. So let's talk about how you guys met.
Well, it's kind of funny. We've actually met on MySpace.
On MySpace?
On MySpace, yeah.
You were friends with Tom?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of funny that she would just send me, and she sent me a couple friend requests, and the second one I approved, just some random, we started talking. I joked and said that she stalked me online. She denies it, but yeah, and then she trusted me, and her parents let me pick her up one day, first time meeting, and I took her down to our local state fair, which is it's a huge fair. It's a massive fair, but that was our first date.
At the state fair, awesome.
Yep, first time ever meeting in person, first date. So yep.
kind of a blind date. I mean, you'd seen pictures, but it's a lot different. Meeting for the first time can be unnerving, especially if you've communicated, digitally.
Yep. It was all via MySpace messaging and phone calls. I mean, we talked on the phone, but that was the first time meeting after talking for about a month.
Interesting. And you were working at ARB then, right?
Yep. Yeah, I actually picked her up. Our first day, I picked her up in, can't remember if it was FJ Cruiser or our 4Runner we had, but it was a company car.
Nice.
So the boss at the time let me borrow it for the date.
Did the company pay for gas, or did you?
No, I paid for it, gas.
Okay.
And then going forward, it was mostly me picking her up in my little black YJ. So that's where we went out on dates with.
And was she at all involved or interested in off-road at that time?
Nope. When I met her, she had a Ford Taurus.
Okay.
And then within a couple of years, she had a ZJ that we built up for her. Yeah, and she absolutely loved that. That was my commuter for a minute until somebody decided to run a stop sign and take me out. But nope, she was not a car person at all. And the funny thing is her grandfather was he owned one of the biggest tire distribution centers in Seattle at the time, or not at the time, but when he was younger. So
Okay.
her whole family's kind of was not built, but her whole family was involved in the automotive industry. But nope, she was driving a Ford Taurus.
Interesting. Interesting. And how long you guys been married?
It was 13 years this July.
13 years this July. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So what is on the horizon for you? What do you hope? What are your hopes and dreams?
Boy, that's a hard question.
It's all right. You can take your time. I can edit out all the long drawn out blanks.
Yeah, I'm just kind of grateful that, again, I've met so many people and I've accomplished so much so far at a fairly young age. We were smart and we purchased a home super early. Actually, we purchased it before we actually officially got married. And then
that's commitment.
With the real estate market around here, we made off like a bandit and purchased kind of a dream home now that we probably won't ever leave until we can't climb the stairs to our bedroom anymore.
Okay.
That's probably super happy as a career, the people I've met, again, accomplishments in photography. I mean, everything. I mean, so yeah, I don't really have, besides staying healthy. I kind of need to get out more, even more than I have been. There's so much of this state that I haven't seen. So, but yeah, no.
What is the area that you want to go to in Washington the most that you haven't explored yet?
So I've explored most of the area, but the area that I need to explore more is actually the Olympic Peninsula. There is actually a lot of roads, back roads and such you can go explore.
Exactly.
I do want to. I love, one of the reasons we're never going to move away from this area probably is because we both love the mountains, snow, and saltwater. So I love the beaches. So I haven't really explored or gone down the Oregon or the California coast. So that's on a list in the next couple of years as well.
Excellent.
We both love the ocean, love the salt water. So, and then maybe down the road, and my wife will probably laugh and hit me or something like this, but would like to get a boat at some point and explore by water up here in the Puget Sound.
Oh, I would have to agree with that. I would love to explore the Puget Sound.
Yep. I'm lucky. We're lucky to have an uncle that's got a boat. So I've spent a lot of time in the San Juans and the Gulf Islands, which is the Canadian San Juans, and north up into Canada. So, but that'd be really fun to really, really explore. And then also even by Jeep too. One of the reasons I picked up the Diesel Gladiator too was to get up into Canada. I mean, we're only 3-hour drive about to the Canadian border in BC. So, I mean, there's lots of stuff up there. I'm seeing a lot of stuff on YouTube on Vancouver Island and on the mainland, and just you can get super remote out there. So I'd love to get up in that area in the next year or so.
That's cool. And then any other, lifelong goals? You want to write a book or, a coffee table book on your photography or anything like that?
Yeah, I've got a lot of years of sports photography, so that would be something it's sad. I have no photos I have no photos in the house that I've actually taken. So there's nothing on the walls. My office has no photos on the walls, living room, nothing. So I have a stockpile of both some landscape, sports photography. So someday I want to print them out and maybe do a photo book.
So let's talk about your sports photography for a little bit. How did you get involved in doing that, and what was the first league that you shot?
So funny enough that my break into sports photography was actually through a contact I met at ARB. But prior to that was after doing all the off-road stuff, I really wanted to kind of do some mainstream sports. So there was a local semi-pro football league I hooked up with that would go do all their marketing photos, and the players would buy photos from me. So that was kind of the real break-in on non-automotive sports. And then a friend of, and actually I got to credit Tim Lund on this one too, but a good friend of Tim, while I was at ARB as a tech, he was the team photographer for the Detroit Lions at the time.
Okay.
So I got to know him. He mentored me. I got to fly out to Detroit, and I flew actually to one of the 49er games too when Detroit was in town, and just basically built a portfolio of NFL photos. And then kind of once you have that, for me at least, my experience, once I had that base of photos and people go see, well, he's been on the NFL sidelines, he must be okay and he must be trustworthy. And then doors just kind of opened up. So I've been shooting for USA Today Sports, covering all the Seattle teams since I think 2011 was my first year with them.
Wow.
So I've shot Mariners. Like this year has been real heavy on the Mariners. They really wanted to cover the team the entire season because they felt pretty good that they make the playoffs, and it looks like that's going to happen. I've shot the Seahawks all these years, Sounders, which is our pro team, and then our pro soccer team, some University of Washington stuff over the years, and then now we have a professional hockey team up here finally. So now I'm part of that, covering that too. We covered that entire season last year.
That's pretty awesome. So I'm going to tell you a story that was I graduated from Brooks Institute of Photography in Santa Barbara back in the day when it was a good school. In fact, it was still around. It's one of the top 3 photography schools in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got out of college, my family had been Niner season ticket holders for like since 70, 71 in that range. I graduated in 81, and I contacted the 49ers and said, hey, I'd like to do a photo essay throughout the year, starting at the beginning of training camp, or, I was in April when I graduated from college. So it was right after that is when I contacted him and then said, from like day one, in the building, I'll just be a shadow. Nobody will even know I'm there. I just want to do a photo essay of the whole year. And they came back and said, that's a great idea, but no, thank you. Because and I said, well, what about, becoming a game day photographer? And they said, well, you need press credentials. So at the time I was living in Pacifica, so I got hold of the Pacifica newspaper and I said, hey, I need press credentials because I'm going to, I've got a chance to go shoot the Niners during game days. And they said, oh, okay. So they gave me, they made me official press with them. I contacted the Niners and they said, no. You have to have real credentials from a real newspaper or news outlet. Well, the Chronicle and the Examiner and none of those guys were going to do anything. So I got really frustrated. Well, that was the year that the Niners won their first Super Bowl with Montana.
Oh.
That 81-82 season. And I was just like, are you kidding me? That would have been such a breakthrough to be able to get that, to have that. And
that would have been awesome.
It didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, well. Anyway, if that would have happened, I'd have probably been completely different, and I wouldn't have been into off-road, and my life would be completely different, and I'm glad it's not.
Yeah, I'm fortunate that I get to do both. I'm a rarity, I think, in the off-road industry that I like mainstream sports and off-roading and dirt sports.
Right. And Formula One.
Yeah, Formula One I'm a big fan of Formula One.
Yeah, because most people that when they talk about anything automotive, especially competitive automotive sports, ball and stick sports, they just, they're not interested in. And,
yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh, you can't do both. And I think that's bull. So
yeah.
You heard it here, America. So then things are going great in your life, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Super happy.
Excellent. And you're in the house that your lifelong house, it sounds like?
Yep. Unless we win the lottery or, again, we can't walk up the stairs anymore. We don't plan on moving.
So, okay, you spoke of the lottery. Unless you win the lottery, but do you play?
I do. I'll do every once in a while. Yeah.
All right,
I'll
good.
throw a couple bucks at it when I go to the grocery store.
Okay, that's fine. I do too. So, because when anybody says that, I said, but do you play? And if they say, well, no. And I said, then you can't use that. You got to come up with something else.
Yeah, exactly. No, I will. I'll pull a couple bucks out of my wallet anytime I'm at the grocery store.
Excellent.
Yep. I figure if I'm going to win, it's going to win off a couple bucks. It's not going to win off how some people throw $100 at the machine when the lottery hits a big number.
Yeah, no, I don't do that.
No.
So then what do you do besides sports photography and automotive? What other passions do you have?
Oh boy.
Do you do any art? Do you
No,
do any construction around the house?
Yeah, with this current house I've done, it's not a passion, but remodeled the kitchen for the most part myself with help of some family members on some of the framing stuff for a larger window. But I've always been kind of a self-taught person, so I'll always look into something before I have to pay for anything, which I don't like to do if I know I can figure it out or do it. So I tried to be a fisherman.
You know what? They've named it wrong. You're not out. I mean, they did it right. You're out fishing. You're not catch. It's not called catching.
Oh yeah.
You know, some people get really lucky, but
yeah, even this past weekend, I took the Jeep up and I got up to kind of a remote. It's considered a high lake in this area, and I knew the lake was listed as an abundant lake by the Washington Fish and Wildlife because it was overpopulated.
Right.
So I figured, I have to be able to grab one out of there. I mean, I got up to this lake. It's a little over 5,000 feet elevation. You can look out in the water and at any given point see at least 15 fish swimming around. And I tried an hour and nothing.
Yeah.
So that's my fishing ability.
So you didn't use the net lure, huh?
No. I was up there by myself, just me. Didn't see anybody else, just the fish. And nothing. So,
and they just looked and laughed at you.
Yep, pretty much. I would have starved that night. So unfortunately I don't get out that often to fish, but I kind of prefer saltwater fishing. We have king salmon runs up here, silver salmon. We have crabbing's awesome. It can be awesome up here. So I really enjoy that, getting out in the saltwater. Unfortunately, I didn't get out there this year, but when it comes to fishing, I really prefer the salt. Trying to think of anything else. I mean, that's.
I think we've touched all the bases.
Yeah, I don't know, because really, my free time, besides house duties, I'm usually out in the Jeep somewhere, exploring, up in the mountains or along the coast, or. Yeah, I used to be real into hiking, but I haven't really done that for a long time.
Okay. And I know Tim Lund has been training on his mountain bike because he's going to go do Scotland with his son on bikes or something like that. Are you training like that still?
No.
Okay.
And actually, I knew he was into mountain biking, but I didn't know him and Dallas, his son, were planning a big trip like that. That's cool.
Yeah, that's why I haven't been able to get him on the. Every time I get hold of him, I said, "Hey, are you ready?" And he goes, "Oh no, I'm gonna be too tired. I'm gonna go out and do 25 miles or 50 miles tomorrow." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll do that in my truck."
Maybe this will be a little bit of a kick in his butt.
There you go. Yeah, I'd like to get him on. Anyway, all right. Well, hey, Stephen, thank you so much for coming on and spending some time and talking about yourself and your history and your off-road passion and your photography passion. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right. And so you take care, and I'll call you later.
Cool. Cheers.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right.
Well, that's another episode of Conversations with Big Rich. I'd like to thank you all for listening. If you could do us a favor and leave us a review on any podcast service that you happen to be listening on, or send us an email or a text message or a Facebook message, and let me know any ideas that you have, or if there's anybody that you have that you think would be a great guest, please forward the contact information to me so that we can try to get them on. And always remember, live life to the fullest. Enjoying life is a must. Follow your dreams and live life with all the gusto you can. Thank you.